What's up, Black and White Nation? This is the Black and White Podcast, Holiday Edition, December 28th, 2022, last show of what has been a very, very good year. We got Black James, we got White James. Black James, you had a birthday.
Who
How does
told
it
you?
feel to be another year older?
Who told
CCAP.
you? Oh, good point. Good point. Usually I try to, hide in the shadow of little baby Jesus, but this time around it was incredibly splendid. Got to enjoy some Friday night fish at a local establishment by the name of Victor's and chillaxed. Christmas Eve day and Boxing Day. What more could you ask for?
Sounds like something White James would do.
No, 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 no. You did the exact opposite. I was giving you a hard time, like, wait, Black James is the one who would go to a museum just for the sake of enriching his intellect, and you're the one who was at MPM.
Yeah, the Milwaukee Public Museum gonna build a new goofy looking facility some point in the next couple years with whatever tax money they can scrap together. So it was one of those deals where it's, hey, we got to get here before it's gone. And it was bigger than what I remember, which is a weird thing to say. It's been probably 10 years since I made a visit, and I was like, wow, this is more than I remember it being.
Bigger than you remember. Got him. Had to.
Hey. I mean, come on, you remember like those field, I guess thinking back, those field trips to go on elementary school. I think we'd spend the whole day there. I mean, it
Oh,
was
for
not
sure.
a like we had to bring your own lunch, right? Had to do that, and then you had your chaperones, and everybody was in a little group with a chaperone. You go around, you look at all this stuff, and it's a lot easier to do it as an adult. I tell you, I felt bad for the a lot of families there on Monday taking advantage of the day off, Christmas
Mm.
break. I mean, I see these parents, three, four kids. Like, I mean, it is. I mean, you're playing zone defense the whole time, and these kids
Mm-hmm.
are having meltdowns. They don't want to. I mean, what do they care about? You know, East Africa history. Like, I mean, to me, I'm like trying to just take it all in, looking for stuff, of interest. But for these kids, like, especially once you get outside the cool stuff, like the dinosaur,
Old
the
Milwaukee.
rainforest, old Milwaukee. Once you get up to that second and third floor, uh, gets a little dry. But I enjoyed it with the fiance, and yeah, that
Ooh,
was
ah.
Boxing Day. That was Boxing Day for old White James here.
High class, high class. Well, you said it. The end of the year is fast approaching, and the biggest topic today is all the change that's going to be ringing in the new year. Coaches of old, gone. Coaches of new, 2023, a fresh start. Can't wait. And I know the unlikeliness of Pack Nation still being in it. We gotta address that. Gotta at least, I mean, pour some out for Tua. Seems like he may have thrown his last triplet of interceptions, but that's for later on.
Yeah, I mean, certainly did not think a month ago we had pretty much officially written off the Packers for this season. I mean, I said it myself. I would rather see Jordan Love get those last five starts, see what we got in them, and but here we are with A-Rod and a defense that's a little bit better, and some fortunate matchups against some banged up teams, and Minnesota coming to town, 2 games to go.
Who would have thought? Not me.
Unreal. Unreal. I mean, there was that skid of Giants, Commanders, Jets. Was Jets in there? Something like that. That was a horrendous 3-game skid. And undefeated in December. The streak is still alive for LaFleur and Rodgers. So let's see. Let's see. Let's see. But we're getting distracted. Talk to me about what I sent over as the first little string of coaching, departures, hires, that somehow it links your school to my school. That really it actually just jumped out at me when I was looking at the latest recap of where the coaching carousel has landed.
Yeah, a lot of these aren't big time jobs that got filled, but there's a lot of movement amongst good jobs, and this whole, as you call it, a daisy chain. I had to reread that. I said, what is that? But the whole uh sequence of events going back to, I guess, mid-season, right, when your Badgers let go Coach Dad Paul Christ.
Portsmouth.
And at the time, I think we both agreed that his replacement, Jim Leonard, was probably going to be the guy
Felt like a
going
shoe-in.
forward. Felt like a shoe-in, felt like pretty much guaranteed, unless he went, 0-7 or whatever it was, that he was going to be the guy for the job. Um, because the trend, the long-term, way of doing business was keeping it, in the family, if you will. And Leonard seemed like he'd be the guy, fits that description to a T. But here they go, new athletic director, right? Chris McIntosh. He is going with the change of philosophy, and he brings in Luke Fickle, who's done obviously a really, really great job at Cincinnati, took them to the playoffs last year, consistently in contention to win the American Conference. And that hire set off quite the chain with Scott Satterfield leaving Louisville to go fill the shoes at Cincinnati,
Yep.
which meant that the Louisville job came open. And the second I saw that, I said, well, there goes Jeff Brom. Guaranteed he'd take that job. And
You called it.
obviously he did. No surprise there. He is Mr. Louisville. The family is revered in the town. I think he's in his early 50s, so it made sense age-wise that this could be, the job his crowning achievement job, worked his way up Western Kentucky to Purdue to Louisville. That's his home, his dream job probably. And a lot of media were kind of speculating, why would you leave the Big Ten for the ACC, knowing going forward college football is basically two power conferences and then everybody else? That if you got a seat in the SEC or the Big Ten,
Hold on. If
yeah,
you're interested.
what?
But when you think about it, being a hometown kid has more prestige than being, I guess, I don't want to throw any insults here, but once the Big Ten goes divisionless, being a bottom half, maybe middle of the pack team, talking Purdue.
Well, yeah. So, and then you have the argument that with the new expanded playoffs, right? 12 teams, that if you're the second team in the ACC, you might have a chance to make it in the top 12 if you have, an unbeaten, maybe one loss run and maybe lose in a conference championship game. You'd still have a chance. Whereas Absolutely. If within the divisionless Big Ten, where you're going to have Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC eventually all lined up ahead of you, the fifth team in the Big Ten is not making the playoffs. Never going to happen.
Mhm.
So, it's an interesting move for him. He almost made the move 2018, felt like it was too soon. He's only at Purdue for 2 years. Makes the move now, and his position is filled by quite the interesting candidate, Ryan Walters, defensive coordinator at Illinois the past 2 years, led one of the best defenses in the country
Mhm.
this season. He was not he was not my first choice. The guy I genuinely wanted, um, Garrett Riley, younger brother of Lincoln, offensive coordinator, TCU. He's a guy who
Mm.
probably in the next 3 years, will have a high major head coaching job. He's one of the things that impressed me about his resume is he's never been on his brother's staff. He has done things on
I
his
know.
own, never rode the coattails. And I mean, we watched TCU this year absolutely light it up offensively. He's still very young, which I think probably is the reason why he might be a year or two away. But I believe he won the award for best or for top assistant coach in the country. So he was the guy I was hoping for. Purdue, a long track record of hiring offensive coaches. In fact, Ryan Walters' first defensive head coach since 1982 at
Whoa.
Purdue.
Holy smokes.
So quite the um, ideology shift. They brought in Graham Harrell as his offensive coordinator, a disciple of the air raid, played at Texas Tech,
I
backup
remember him.
quarterback for the Packers
I remember
for a
him.
little bit there. So I like that hiring. Um, but I just want to go back in this whole daisy chain, as you label it, to your Badgers, because they are going to absolutely change everything about the way they do with Luke Fickle and offensive coordinator. Should have done my research on this one, but he was at North Carolina this year, and they run the air raid. So, as a Badger fan, are you ready to move on from the days of running back you and into this new era of 21st century football?
I mean, it's easy to say I'm on board considering yesterday's outcome. I was able to hop into the second half of the guaranteed rate bowl, and Wisconsin was looking pretty good. I was listening to the broadcast, and they had one quote from Jim Leonard, outgoing, but he still had something heartwarming to say in that, Wisconsin, they don't get a lot of five-star guys, but the guys who do come, they put in the effort, they're encouraged to develop their own career, and just like Kismet, quite arguably one of the best defensive linemen, if not this century, definitely the last 10 years, our own Pewaukee native transferred into UW Wisconsin, JJ Watt. So it's not all about just having the NIL opportunities and star outreach that our neighbors to the east may have in Michigan and Ohio State. I really do believe that when you have a defensive minded coach coming in with a new scheme and encouraging the offense to also develop some new looks, new ideas. Hey, you said it. We got half of the West Coast coming in to the conference. So it's adapt or die. And a 24-17 win last night, I'll take it as a good omen. I know it's very shallow and it could have gone the other way, but that's the current Badger take.
Yeah, it's Phil Longo is the offensive coordinator from North Carolina this year, who's coming over to Wisconsin next year. I just wonder how the fan base is going to take this because they, for so long, have held on to the Barry Alvarez way: run the ball, physical up front, play great defense, win 10 games, and be happy about it. But like you said, this is a new era, and you gotta evolve. So we'll see how that goes because I think wasn't it about 10 years ago that when Brett Bielema left, Gary Anderson came in, tried to change things up, and it was a train wreck, and he was gone in 2 years, I believe, which brought in Paul Christ, the
But Anderson,
proverbial Badger guy.
he doesn't have quite the resume of Fickle. I know he was in Southern Utah, and he has done a great job or did a great job at Oregon State, but I just don't see anything short of revolution with this type of hire. And Fickle was obviously waiting for his opportunity to make his mark on a Power Five institution. I say bring it on because what we've been doing is not working. And by that, I mean winning those 10 games and then losing in the Rose Bowl, losing by 50 some in the Big Ten championship game. Like at some point, you may get used to some level of mediocre success, but then it's downright embarrassing to always come up short when it matters at the end of the season. And my fingers are crossed that this is the type of regime that can really develop discipline, accountability, and the willingness to really embrace these opportunities that are going to be far and few between in the well, now I'm thinking as I think about it, although the divisionless Big Ten may be a big smorgasbord, it will be a 12-team playoff future in which, so long as Wisconsin, maybe we get a win over UCLA and Michigan State and a down and out Penn State, that's enough to nab a number 8 spot, 9 spot, whatever the at large bids look like. So for me, this is the best case scenario.
No, it's a great hire. And yeah, to, to make that next step, they needed to make the splash hire, and I think they did. I want to ask you about another guy because we got the list of new coaching hires, and one of the big jobs that was open was Auburn, and their hire was Hugh Freeze, who, for those of you who might not know his story, brilliant offensive mind, worked his way up Arkansas State, first head coaching job, moved on to Ole Miss, uh, and he did some naughty things. He various recruiting violations, academic violations, and ultimately resigned when he got caught using a university cell phone to call escort services at least a dozen times over almost a 3-year period.
Okay.
So we know he can win. He went on to coach at Liberty the past 4 years, has built up a very good program. But do you think Auburn is making the right decision in taking a formerly disgraced but yet successful coach to try to bring themselves back into SEC relevancy?
Auburn is a program in and of its own, and every time I watch a UCF game and I see Gus Malzahn sitting there, I'm like, talk about the kids being in control of the classroom. Now, I'm not saying that Auburn is never going to get their ish together, but what I am saying is a place where you had a winning quarterback accused of some very unsavory things. Look at you, Cam. And the willingness to let go a man who brought home the ring, what, 2 years after the fact? This is as untraditional a SEC power as it gets. And in this ever increasing, wild and wilder west of NIL, this is the only Power Five spot where you would have administrators and boosters not only willing to look the other way, turn the other cheek, but they probably, behind closed doors, are just as guilty of using university resources for inappropriate behavior and thought, hey, if this guy can continue to coach on a level near Saban, like he's been propped up to be, bring that boy in. We'll take him down to the local church to ask for forgiveness, and let's get some wins on the board. That's my interpretation of it.
I mean, back in 2015, Ole Miss beat Alabama for the second time in a row, making Hugh Freeze only the third SEC coach, along with Les Miles and Steve Spurrier, to defeat a Nick Saban coach team back-to-back years.
There you go.
They ultimately went to the Sugar Bowl that year, which they won. They finished 9th in the AP poll, their first top 10 finish since 1969.
Sounds
And
like a winner to me.
I mean, yeah, I'd say Auburn and Ole Miss pretty similar on the SEC pecking order. Um, I just this is either going to go really well or really poorly, because if things go bad, I think there's you have an easy out to let him go. Say, you know what, he just doesn't he doesn't represent what we want in a coach, and you can move on. But it's a gutsy move, and I think people will be critical of it. But like you said, Auburn needs that kind of splash hire, because nothing else is going to get them on the same level of their in-state rivals.
Plus, you look at the internal carousel that Auburn has gone through over the past just 10 years from '09. Chiswick, Malzahn, Harsin, Freeze. I've even mentioned the interim coaches in between. That's a lot of turnover for what's supposed to be a place where it just means more. So at some point, you're only going to get the caliber of candidates that rises to the quality of position you have. And that correlates with the level of headache that particular job is going to bring with it. Wink, wink, Denver. So this feels like a true match made in
Purgatory.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Save me there.
All right, I gotta ask you another one. Another big. This is the big name coach going to a program that needs a real kick in the butt. Deion Sanders going to Colorado. I want to know your thoughts on this, because for me, I think this has the boom or most boom or bust potential of any of these hires that we've talked about.
We may have talked about it before, but Colorado had the most double-digit losses of any Power Five team this year. Just atrocious. And anyone with a reasonable amount of coaching acumen will be able to come in and quote unquote turn it around to a what, 4 and 8 team, 4-7 team, 4-6 team, whatever the number adds up to, and that will be a monumental success, literally tripling the number of wins. But when you look at what Dion did at Jackson State, which at the time was as unknown a uh, I'll just call it a black college athletically as you can imagine, and in a matter of years, granted through the help of his son playing quarterback, undefeated regular season, didn't quite win the SWAC champ. Didn't quite win their bowl game, but the guy knows how to instill a culture. And that's a word that we have yet to use here during this segment. But if anyone's going to embody that ideology, it is Prime. And it's not as if this can't turn into another marriage that lasts and benefits both parties because Colorado isn't a bottomless pit of irrelevance. They have a national championship to their name within our lifetimes, within the lifetimes of most people who eventually listen to this show. So it's not a far reach to imagine, okay, this is a place that knew how to win, that had people like Joel Klatt in the late 90s. If you were a college football fan back then, you saw the Buffs winning 8, 9, 10 games. That is even closer to present day. And then you have the other side of it, which is if someone's going to come in and tell the kids, you're not wearing slides, you're not wearing your hat backwards, you're not bringing your phone into practice, all these little things that are really aimed at turning boys into men, most teens, they're going to say, who the heck are you to tell me what to do? And this is the one man who you can't even begin the question of who. What do you mean who? It's Dion. That's who. That's who's telling you to act right and stand up straight. And for me, that is all the ingredients you need to start to cook something. Plus the fact that the Pac-12 has become weaker, that's also in his favor. Dude, I'm pumped to see what will occur in the next 3 to 4 years. I'm not going to be too bullish. Maybe he'll hit a ceiling and only win 6, 7 games a year by year 4, year 5, at which point you can debate if that's a success or not. But in the meanwhile, talk about relevance. Talk about how am I going to recruit kids if I don't have all the NIL resources of my fellow Pac 12 remaining schools, Oregon, Washington. Coach right there. Coach Prime. That's all you need.
I mean, yeah, just to put the numbers to the recent irrelevancy, Colorado has finished below 500 15 of the last 17 seasons. Just 2 bowl games since 2008, and since the start of last season, 5-19, second most losses in Power Five. And this is a team or I think it was the COVID season that Mel Tucker, I think they won 9 games or something like that. So the resources are there, and like you mentioned, the past success is there. I'm with you. I think this could really work well, but I also think this could just be the stepping stone to the next job for
No,
for
I,
Deion
I hear you.
Sanders. That
I
this
hear
is
you.
not he's not staying at Colorado. I mean he was only at Jackson State for the 2 seasons, and I think people kind of thought he would stick around a little bit longer just to see how big he can make it. But he left, again, after 2 years. If he makes Colorado a 10-win team in 2 years, let's say, who's to say he doesn't leave again? But I think
And
this could work. I
yeah,
mean, this doesn't seem like there's any downside for Colorado. Yeah, he doesn't have any high major experience, but the guy was recruiting five-star players to Jackson State. Like
yeah.
he can get the recruits to come to Boulder, Colorado. That's not going to be the issue. And like you mentioned, the Pac-12 is not what it was, or what it is not going to be what it was with UCLA and USC gone. I mean, it's going to be a weakened conference, but there's still that seat at the table for the Pac-12 champion. I think this was, it wasn't the obvious choice. Everyone thought, oh, big time program's going to come in, hire them, but this is a good next step. If Deion Sanders wants to be an all-time great college head coach, this is, a good part two for his coaching journey.
And the precedent is right there in front of us. Mel Tucker came in, signed a contract, and one season, just one season in, he got offered a quote unquote bigger job. So yeah, Dion puts up two great seasons, or rather turns things around this season, gets above 500 in year two, possibly reaches 10 wins in year two. Dude, doors are flying down from the rest of the country for whoever's struggling at that time.
All right, I got a couple more coaches I want to talk about. The other quote unquote big job, Nebraska, made I think the right hire with Matt Rule, excuse me, after his failed venture into the NFL. He comes back, takes over at a program that, has been, let's be honest, irrelevant for the last 20 years, certainly to their expectation levels. And they thought they had the guy with Scott Frost when he came in from his pretend national championship at UCF. Prodigal son comes home, and it just didn't work out. And Matt Rule, I think he's not going to move the needle per se the way Frost did, but I think he's the quote unquote program builder that Nebraska needs. I mean, it might take them 3-4 years to go from, I mean, what are they getting now? 4 or 5 wins to get back up into that 7, 8, and 9 win area. But what he did at Baylor, taking a team that was basically left for dead with NCAA allegations and probation and just absolute dumpster fire, and in his third year win 10 games. I mean, that is, I think, the expectation for what he could do at Nebraska.
Yeah, Nebraska, yet another one of these schools that has a not too forlorn memory of relevancy. Actually, more so than Colorado. We're talking multiple national championships in the 90s. And I don't know what in the world they were thinking when they did two things in the early 2000s. One, making that jump into the Big 12, and sorry, leaving the Big 12 to join the Big 10. And two, letting go Bo Pelini, who had a 70% winning, a 70% winning history. 67-27. Since then, it's been abject poverty, sub 500. I don't even know who Mike Riley is. Then you got the aforementioned Scott Frost, and let's throw him to the Wolves interim Mickey Joseph. Matt Rule is a guy who has been there, done that. You didn't mention my favorite job of his, Temple, making Philly remember that they've got a college football team to root for in addition to the four professional teams. So this is not a I gotta wake up and see what Colin Cowherd has to say about the Cornhuskers. Clearly, they're not going to be on the front page of anybody's radar anytime soon. But if you need someone who's just gonna put his head down and quietly collect whatever his buyout was from the Panthers and rebuild a completely lost identity. I can't tell you what it is Nebraska's trying to do, trying not to do, offensively, defensively. Rule's the guy. Rule's the guy. He's been coaching since 98. That's 20 years of, okay, working the line, linebackers, associate head coach, quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinator, NFL, NCAA. If you need someone to clean up the mess of, hey, this is my first time taking a big boy job, not to belittle what Frost did with UCF, but the same way Dion has that prestige of a shiny object to bring kids into Colorado, Who's got the old school, I'm gonna show you through my 20 plus years of hard earned football IQ what it's gonna take to make the Cornhuskers great again.
Yeah, identity. That's another one of those buzzwords you hear from coaches, right? What's our identity going to be? And yeah, I think with Rule, um, I think he's got that kind of Big Ten, old school Big Ten, physical, smash mouth football, but with enough modernness to his coaching pedigree that he can make Nebraska what it used to be. That's a sleeping giant of a program. I mean, they will literally pour every resource they have into their football program to make them successful. So that's a great job to have. Just one more that I think this is maybe the worst hiring. Trent Dilfer at UAB. I mean, this is a guy who's coaching high school football after his time at ESPN once he retired from the NFL. So no college coaching experience. And this is a UAB program that since they came back from um I don't know, extinction basically, uh they've been relatively solid. And to go with a completely unknown commodity, not so much in name, but by coaching acumen, this one really caught me off guard. Uh, I don't know about you, but this one was the biggest head scratcher of all these hires.
Yeah, and that's why I just made that Cowherd reference because that is the only time I have seen Dilfer outside of his I don't even know what year it was they won the Super Bowl, and by they I mean the Ravens defense won the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about a game manager if there ever was one to make it to the mountaintop. And in a way, maybe that gives him a better outlook on this. He's not coming in as the hey, I had the arm talent and I alone carried our team all the way there. It was no, I of all people appreciate what it means to have a defensive unit that can control games, and all you need is some 6'3" doofus who can keep the ball with the offense and not turn it over. Maybe that's going to be his recipe for success, not needing to find some star quarterback to move on down to Birmingham. Rather, just focus on the nuts and bolts. That was my initial reaction to it. Like, yeah, he got his son's high school team to win state championships. Whatever. Anyone can do that. UAB though, I never knew or never followed much of anything. I can't tell you about their Conference USA history or prospects or where they stand amongst the other teams there, but for me, this is a Jeff Saturday plus move. Just a slightly more credibility when it comes to dragging a guy out of the makeup chair and putting him into the coaching office.
That's calling a doofus. That's a very fair assessment as far as I am concerned. All right, let's flip it here. Let's talk about those who are actually doing something important this time of year. We're talking CFP, college football playoffs,
Woo!
semifinals.
Let's
We've
go.
got TCU versus Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl. That's a 3 o'clock kick on New Year's Eve on Saturday. And then in the Peach Bowl, we've got Georgia and Ohio State. That's a 7 o'clock Central Time kickoff. Gosh, I mean, let's start with the early game. TCU Michigan. This one, in my bowl predictions, I believe this is my least confident pick that Michigan's going to beat TCU. And I think I'm a little bit out there with that one. But something about Max Duggan and this TCU, this magic that they've had all season, part of me thinks that they can be the ones to pull off the shocker that we haven't really seen in the college football playoff semifinals, right? Like the years like the Michigan States and the Cincinnatis have made it. I can even throw Notre Dame into that conversation. Um, Nowhere close to pulling the upsets. I think TCU, I think they could be the ones that break through and pull off a massive upset.
So on my Bowl Mania, it's actually two opposite ends of the spectrum. I am incredibly sure of Michigan. I've got Michigan all the way down there, like 37 points for the win. Then Ohio State, Georgia, that's more towards the middle of the pack, 20 something, just to show you where these two games land for me. My heart is affecting my pick, though. I really do want Michigan to have a repeat matchup of some sort in the final, whether it's Ohio State or Georgia. I really want to see have they developed into a team that can take the next step instead of failing to cross the same Rubicon they met last year. Now, making the CFP semifinals, that is a dream for literally the 21 other teams that wind up ranked at the end of the season. And I know I'm not really talking a lot of specifics because, quite frankly, I don't have much more specifics other than what we've seen all year. Michigan, ground and pound, Sonny Dykes. He's got a grinder in Max Duggan. He's got some offensive talent. And other than that, they're just scrappy. They're just doing what they can to win, what was it, 5, 6, 7, 8 one possession games throughout the season, out of the Vikings. So I can't quite trust TCU to pull this off as much as I can pour my faith into Michigan, who has been here before and has unfinished business ahead of them. Hence, it being my fourth most confident pick.
And that's one of the big factors I think in this is the experience that Michigan got last year being the new kid on the block, right? Being, first time playoff team and getting beat up. They 1 year later are back in the same place, but this time they're the ones with the experience against a TCU team who have not been anywhere close to this stage before.
Happy to be here.
And I'm not sure they're just happy, but I think they think they can win it.
Bro.
There's something about this team, and I'll be honest, I haven't watched a lot of their games, but I watched most of their Big 12 championship game. A game I know they ultimately lost, but there was something about their scrappiness, their never say die attitude that I think in a big game situation, I want the team that's been tested, that's had to come from behind, and that if the game's close at the end, they have that self-belief, we can make this happen. I mean, I could see it go the other way where Michigan blows them out, and doesn't matter how scrappy you are when you're down, 31-3 at halftime.
Right.
But if it's a close game, if we're in the third quarter and it's 20 to 20 in the third quarter, all of a sudden it has to, start like TCU, they just get better as they play, as the game goes on. I'm really like I'm picking Michigan. I picked Michigan in my picks, lowest confidence possible, but I'm just saying of the two games, both games about a touchdown for the favorites. I wouldn't be shocked to see TCU at the very least cover the spread.
Which is
At the moment, we're looking at Michigan favored by 7.5.
okay.
If you told me TCU loses by a touchdown, I mean that's my sharp money pick right there. 7.5. That's a good number to get TCU at.
I hear you.
I'm a believer. I'm drinking the purple Kool-Aid, at least to cover the spread.
Ready to hear it first, folks. There's your sneaky pick.
I want to talk the second game though, because this is the blockbuster matchup, the prime time. This is the main event. Ohio State second chance after their semi meltdown, would you say, against Michigan. They get a second chance here against Georgia, the undisputed reigning national champions. Gotten better as the season have gone on. Have arguably the best player on any team, Jalen Carter, an absolute disruptive force at defensive tackle, an absolute freak. I was reading a lot about the matchups in this game, and the one thing that sticks out, if there's any team that could give Georgia issues, it's Ohio State, because Georgia is built to break you down. And if you don't have any big play option and you're trying to, run the ball for 4 yards of play and play action and all that, this front seven is just going to shut you down and get after the quarterback, and you need big play options. But that's what Ohio State can do. They have big play receivers.
Yes, they do.
Marvin Harrison Jr. and CJ Stroud. His numbers this year were absolutely incredible. I mean, he is a Heisman finalist for good reason. 37 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions. I think people kind of forget how good Ohio State was pre-Michigan, and I think a lot of that defeat was on their defense.
Oh yeah, especially failing to adjust in the second half.
I mean, failures to adjust, and this is where another fascinating matchup. Ohio State's defense got beat by the big play, right? I mean, how many times did Edwards for Michigan bust off big run after big run? Georgia's offense is not built for the big plays. They are the same way as their defense. They beat you up, they get you going over the 60 minutes. Stetson Bennett, not a guy who's going to beat you over the top. No idea why he's the Heisman finalist. he makes the smart throws, he makes the right throws, completes almost 70% of his passes. But if Ohio State gets some big plays early and Georgia has to be in catch-up mode, they are not built to play comeback football. They're built on two tight end sets, run the ball with a couple different guys, throw the ball to a couple different guys. The sum is greater than the parts. But they have not been in that position this year where they've needed to have the big comeback. So it'll be interesting to see if Ohio State can utilize those big play options, get up early, and make Georgia play a game, a style, a game plan that they are not accustomed to doing.
Yeah, just take a few weeks back, and the last time Georgia had to go up against the best offense in the country, the contender for the national title, it wasn't Stetson Bennett putting up 40 points to come out ahead. It was the Georgia D stomping Tennessee to only 13 points. So I very much agree with what you're saying. That is their side of the game plan. We gotta keep the score reasonable because we've got Trent Dilfer on our hands. And that's great. But you've got a Ohio State team which was blowing out everybody up until Michigan. And they have that great win over Penn State in which they did put 44 points on the board. So that's going to be their ideology coming into this game. Let's get this into a 5-6 score game. It is fascinating the way in which, excuse me, these two are cars on a direct collision into each other, and it's a question of who's going to be able to define how this game's going to be played. And I don't think Georgia has, well, I'm sure they have enough respect for the Buckeyes, but people are really letting that last regular season of the game cloud their vision because these Buckeyes, they won the Big Ten 4 years in a row up until this current Michigan 2-year streak began. Urban Meyer in 17, Meyer in 18, Day in 19, Day in 20. Big Ten is no small potatoes, and that means year after year after year, this program knows what it means to prepare for a big game. And fair or not, they've been able to, well, first hope that they were going to be able to slide in. And now that they are in the mix, spend 3 weeks planning for this one opponent. Like I said, this one's in the middle of my confidence pack. I just didn't really know which way to lean, but I went with the reigning champs at the end of the day. Give me Georgia. Give me 27 for the Bulldogs, 21 for Ohio State. That's the only way that they can win.
Yeah, I mean, I've got all the confidence. I should say I had all the confidence in Georgia. They're my number 3 top pick. But
Ooh,
I'm starting to, I'm not questioning that they're going to win the game, but I'm questioning how much of an opportunity Ohio State's going to have to win the game. I was thinking Georgia dominates this game against a downtrodden Ohio State team. But the more I read into it, like Ohio State's not a bad team. Like they're probably the best or one of the best number 4 seeds that's ever been in this. And correct me if I'm wrong, but when they won their national championship mid 2010s, they were the number 4 seed.
I believe so. I believe so.
Yeah, so this is nothing new for them. I know that goes back quite a ways, but I think a lot, like you said, a lot of people are sleeping on them because of what happened in that Michigan game. And I know it was a home game, and it's kind of like, well, there's no excuses for loss like that. But I think one of the big factors is this is a indoor game. This is a basically a track meet, and I think that take the elements out of the equation, and that really helps Ohio State's passing game with the explosive plays. I might change my picks here. I'm still going Georgia, but I don't know if I want them in that number 3 slot. I don't have many other options to go with.
Well, dude, let me just throw another wrench in there because, as you were saying, yeah, 2014 season, Ohio State comes into the playoff as the number 4 team, and the Sugar Bowl, technically held on January 1st, 2015, they took down big old Bama, 42-35. Then they went on to win it all against Oregon. So yeah, this is not their first rodeo coming in as the quote unquote underdog of the playoff teams, and then going on to win it all.
Yeah,
It's
and,
it's
and
not unreal.
underdog's a funny, like it's not a fitting term for them.
It's
There's
not.
nothing about that program that's anything underdog related. But in this situation, yeah, they are kind of the underdog, and that might be a good fit for them. Some teams, that little chip on the shoulder, that's motivation right there for Ryan Day saying, "Hey, nobody thinks you guys can win this.
Hmm.
We got NFL talent across the board just like they do. Let's go out there." And if at the quarterback position, huge advantage Ohio State. And if it comes down to who has the ball at the end of the game, I know Stetson Bennett's got a national championship to his name, but I want the guy who can make the big throws, and that's CJ Stroud. And gosh, if it comes down to it, if it comes down to that last possession, that's gonna be a must see TV moment.
And don't forget, CJ Stroud, he's been in this level of national TV, incredibly important implications practically a year ago today, that epic Rose Bowl against Utah, where they put up 48 points and took home the crown of roses or whatever it's called. So the point still stands. Is Ohio State going to be able to enter this as a track meet, or is Georgia going to be able to put up that stone wall and keep this within the hedges, if you will?
All right, let's just before we get to Packers, I just want to check in. How are your bowl picks doing? Because I'll tell you what, I don't know if you were watching, but my number 2 confidence pick that I was so assured about, Arkansas, just blew a 25-point lead, but pulled it out in triple overtime,
Whoa!
55-53. Kansas with scored 15 points in 24 seconds with less than 2 minutes to go to tie the game. It was 38-13 in the third quarter. Arkansas was looking great. I'm like, this is the lock of the century. Kansas, miracle comeback, forced overtime. Both teams scored their first 2 possessions. Then you have to start going for 2-point conversions only.
Mhm.
Arkansas got theirs. Kansas missed theirs. 42 points on the board for me. This is a huge day for me. I got Oregon as my number 4 pick overall, currently losing to North Carolina. Just checking in, how are the Black James Bowl Pick'em picks going?
Now, when it comes to the big points, a lot of those games haven't even been played. Everything that I have here for 30 points on up, the only ones that have occurred, I had Air Force at 36 points. That was pretty
That was a
obvious.
great pick. I was with you 100%. I said when I saw it was like 15 degrees at kickoff for that game or whatever it was, and you had Air Force, the #1 running team in the country, I'm
Come on,
like,
let's go.
that's easy money right there.
And Southern Miss, like we said, you don't lose to food. I had them at 40 points, so that's on the board. And then everything else is the rest of my 40 plus points. I'm waiting on USC to take on Tulane in the new year, Florida State on Thursday night, LSU taking down your Boilermakers in the new year. So I'm praying that my 30 plus point picks come through because the 29 and less, it's a real mixed bag. I've got a 13-9 record. Let me just say that, and I I got manhandled by. I didn't think Louisville was gonna beat Cincinnati. That was quite an upset. Uh, and then a lot of them were kind of up in the air. SMU, BYU. I was like, I don't know. North Texas. I really thought Boise State was gonna hold it on, but that didn't come through. And then I put a lot on Bowling Green and San Diego State, who both lost. So that's the current state of affairs. All my marbles are in the next 5 days.
Yeah, I mean, that Purdue pick, LSU over Purdue, still my #1 play. Purdue quarterback, receiver, tight end, all opted out. Coach is gone. Who knows who else is already in the transfer portal? I know LSU had a star receiver enter the NFL draft recently, but I am still 1,000% locked in on LSU in that one. I've got Oregon, as I said, for big points going right now. Oregon State, Boise State both hit. Those are 30 plus pointers for me.
Okay.
UAB as well. I mean, I had some that I was sweating it out. Yeah, that New Mexico State game, that was a close one. Toledo over Liberty. Uh, you know, I definitely went lower points on the uh, group of 5 matchups. I just didn't know much about that UTSA Troy. It was
Right,
a great
right.
game, but I'm like, I don't know much about these teams. I'm going to put more stock in the teams that I know. I texted you. I said once I saw Alabama had most of their players opting in to play, I
Yes,
was
sir.
backing backing out on my Kansas State upset pick. I've got Alabama as a 38 pointer right now, so
Whoa.
expecting that one to go.
That's okay.
I moved them
Okay.
up.
Oh no, I'm just giving you a hard time. I also switched over to Bama the minute you gave me that news. Like, oh, okay, Saban's got these boys standing up straight, but it's still only gonna be
Yeah,
for.
all right. So we'll keep playing. We'll keep watching. My picks currently sit in the 94.4 percentile. I should really start betting money because I'm doing well with these picks. But at
Man,
that point, I'd probably start overthinking it, and I would stop winning. But 17-7 overall. Um, but like I said, a lot of big games coming up here in the next few days. Last topic of the show. All of a sudden becomes interesting, right? Green Bay Packers playoff chances. All they have to do is win 2 and get a loss from the Carson Wentz led Washington football team,
let's
Commanders.
go, Commodores,
I
commies.
mean, that was honestly the biggest news of the week, was that Carson Wentz is going to be the starting quarterback for Washington, because I have even more confidence that Washington will lose at least one of their last 2 games, because Carson Wentz is absolute garbage as a starting quarterback. I was reminded of the story from last year when Carson Wentz, as quarterback of the Colts, all they had to do in week 18 was go down to Jacksonville, worst record in the NFL, and win the game as 15-point favorites, and they lost by 2 touchdowns.
Love to see it.
That's I am sold on Washington losing at least once to either Cleveland or
The Cowboys.
Dallas, yeah.
Come on.
I am in, and so that just means Packers take care of your business at home. Vikings and Lions this week. I mean, the Vikings keep finding ways to win.
Yes, they do.
And it just boggles the mind, doesn't it? I mean, last week, what did they do last week? They're losing against the Eagles, right?
No, Giants.
No, Giants. Sorry, Giant. Oh, that's right. Eagles smoked them. They're losing to the Giants the whole way, right? And what do? They get another last-second field goal, just as they did the week before, win the game 27-24. Kirk Cousins leads the comeback, 3 touchdowns on the day. I mean, I don't believe in Kirk Cousins one bit. For all the talent he has. I mean, Justin Jefferson, 12 catches, 133 yards last week. Hawkinson, what a pickup. Can't believe the Lions gave him away basically to a division rival. 13 catches, 109 yards. A nearly unstoppable offense. And yet every week the Vikings, it comes down to a field goal at the end.
My concerns are with what was our greatest asset, a fully healthy roster. That's what seems to have been the ticket to this magical December that the Packers have had. Like, finally, Dobbs and Watson are in the rotation. Finally, we have both running backs in the rotation. And I'm looking at the most recent injury report: Christian Watson, hip, and Aaron Jones, knee, ankle. Like, those are the differences, if you ask me, between another Vikings one possession win and the Packers being able to really do their job on Sunday. I'm having a hard time picturing the next stage of this miraculous comeback, but my fingers are crossed that everyone is available.
Yeah, I'm reading the inside report. Watson's day-to-day with the hip injury. That doesn't really make me too confident, but having Dobbs back, and having Dobbs back was nice. And yeah, that little bit of time where everyone was healthy. I mean, it's hard to think that the Vikings are going to come in and have a repeat of week 1, right? Like, they're not going to come in and just smack the Packers around.
No. That was a Packer team that could barely find their shoes, let alone find their footing.
But if it comes down to a late game situation, I mean, this is the comparison to TCU does have a little bit of, does carry some water when you talk about a team that just always seems to find a way to win. And it's almost like, and this is what will absolutely get you in trouble in the playoffs, that like you have to be losing to play your best, Like, that is, it's a horrible kind of game plan to have. I mean, obviously you're not going to say, all right, let's fall behind just so we can, pick our game up. But sometimes it just naturally happens that when you play better from behind, and that's how the Vikings have been really all season. So if it's, Packers are up, mid third quarter and the game's at least close, all of a sudden I might be getting a little bit nervous because Minnesota just every single week seems to find that little extra late in the game, and it doesn't hurt that you have arguably the best receiver
Mm-hmm.
in the NFL along with a number of other options to throw to. I mean, it's a bounty of riches for the Vikings, and the fact that they don't win games by more than what they do, it really does boggle the mind. And I would love whoever plays them in the playoffs, even though you're gonna have to go to Minnesota. I
Yeah.
would absolutely love that matchup.
And as I alluded to at the top of the show, I don't like emphasizing when someone is legitimately hurt. And when I saw that clip of when everyone presumes Tua got his concussion towards the end of the first half, and you see his head snap into the ground, almost identical to what happened to him a couple months ago, it's hard to not then put two and two together and think, oh, maybe the guy was concussed enough to throw not one, not two, but three interceptions in the second half, three picks, which undoubtedly gave the Packers the win. Obviously, that's not going to happen with Kirk. And whatever luck or guile the Packers were able to use to win by 6 last week, aka shout out to Old Man Crosby for getting those last 6 points. That's not going to be enough this time. It's going to have to be some legitimate, not missing assignments, not letting the Vikings just stroll up and down the field. And although last week felt like it was going to be impossible, I'm just, I guess with every passing week, I get more and more stressed out about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the expectation level went from, well, it's a 1% chance, but I guess there is a chance. So let's see how we do. Now it's like they
30.
basically can control their own destiny. I know it's like literally a toss up between the Packers, Seahawks, Lions, and Washington
Yeah,
for who gets that last pick, the last spot. I mean, Detroit still controls it too, right? If
good point.
Washington loses one game and Detroit wins their last two games, they're the ones that make the playoffs. So
Hmm.
it's crazy how this extra playoff spot, this seventh spot that they added a couple years ago, it brings, let's be honest, some barely average teams into the equation, but it creates drama, and I'm sure the NFL loves it. I'm sure this is why they wanted to add the extra playoff team because it brings more excitement into the last couple of weeks, brings more money into the pocket because you have an extra two playoff games
Kashish.
to sell to the networks. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to admit I was wrong about wanting to see Jordan Love because the season was over 3 weeks ago. After what was it? After the Eagles loss, where Rodgers was hurt, and I was ready to throw in the towel. I was saying, "Give me Jordan Love, 5 weeks. Let's see what we got." And I'll be honest, I did not realize the Matt LaFleur undefeated in December stats. I
Hmm.
was unaware
Hmm.
of that. And the fact that they've been able to keep that going is really incredible. So I'm staying cautiously optimistic right now because this team, it does feel like they've been playing with fire. I mean, they literally had to have everything go right for them just to even get to this point. And so far it has, and it just feels like one thing could go wrong and then it's poof all over.
But it's been a great ride, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Having said all that, give me okay. I just gotta go with my heart. Just gotta go with my heart. Despite the fact the Pack has struggled to score 30 points all year, Packers 33, Vikings 28.
Woo!
Yeah.
Okay. We're making picks, so we're going give me Packers 27, Vikings 24.
We'll have to find out, or everyone else will find out in the new year. Any well wishes for everyone as they flip the calendar?
So, wishing everyone health and happiness in the new year. We'll be coming right back at you. 2023, fresh episodes of Black and White Podcast. I want to thank everyone who does listen. We appreciate them so much. We've actually started to build a little bit of a following here. So we're gonna my resolution is to keep the Black and White Podcast going as we enter 2023.
Likewise, I'm excited to make this transition after college championship into college basketball. Definitely got to chat a bit about what Luka did the other night as we bring in the NBA into the fold, get some callers, and golf season is quick approaching. So Black James will finally get to chat about his favorite golf swings on tour. Until next time, everyone. Peace.
Peace.